and we get in and we land the airplane, and everyone in the plane starts cheering. And that was a little different, a little surprising, and it was like, wow, why is everyone cheering? And then it was when I found out, well, to the Tegucigalpa airport specifically is supposed to be one of the more dangerous airports in the world. And so the fact that we landed and we didn't crash and die, we're celebrating that. And I was kind of, my heart stopped a little bit, like, oh, really? I didn't realize my life was at stake. And as I was talking to more people, it's been a long time since they've had an accident. But when the airport was first established and when technology and planes weren't quite what they are today, they did have a series of bad plane accidents, and so now, even though the danger is not nearly what it used to be, there's still applause every time a plane lands and people get to walk out of the plane. So that was kind of funny. I wasn't expecting that. So we're kind of getting a little lost, but we find eventually where our apartment is, and we go and we unload everything and put some of our stuff away, and I needed to go to the bathroom. So I asked my companion, have you found the bathroom yet? And he's like, well, I think it's out there, and so I leave, and it was, it was inside, but it was still detached from the house and whatnot. And I go, and the bathroom, it looks, fairly normal, like a fairly normal bathroom. There was definitely a lot of cement and just painted cement as opposed to drywall or things like that we typically see in the U.S. or tile. So there was just this kind of cement room, and I go to the bathroom, and then I go to flush, and the toilet doesn't flush. And I think, okay, this is kind of awkward, what do I do? Do I just leave it? Or, I keep trying to press the latch, and it's not flushing, and I'm just thinking, like, what do I do, And so, I go and talk to my companion and try to explain. He didn't speak English either, so I'm trying to explain, the baño, the bathroom, and you're making noises, kind of making a fool of myself, I'm sure. And he finally gets it, and he's like, oh, yeah, lots of times there's no water. We don't have running water all the time. And so I was like, oh, well, then how do you flush the toilet? And so he came and he showed me, and right, I hadn't noticed this when I walked in, but so right next to the little, cement building that had the bathroom was this big tub that they call a pila, and it's basically this big cement tub, it's a square, and it's about your waist high, and it's just filled with water. So when they do have running water, and usually they would have running water multiple times a week, but not all the time, and when it came, it would only come for a couple hours. And so you go, and when you have water, you turn it on, and you fill up your big pila, and that's your water storage. And so he said, yeah, so, what you go is you go and you take a bucket, and you dip the bucket in the pila, and then now you got the bucket full of water, and you go and you pour the water directly into the toilet bowl, and that flushes the toilet, which I did not know would work, but it totally does, and it works in the States too. If you just go and take a bunch of water and dump it down the toilet, then the toilet flushes. And so that was quickly an introduction to things are different here, but they still work. And so that was kind of a funny thing. In that first week, I got really sick. I think part of it was just being in a new place and just having my body adjusting to different bacteria that are all around us always and things like that. But so I got really sick with a little bit of just traveler's adjustment. But then I also got a disease called dengue, and it's basically a disease transmitted by mosquitoes that gives you extremely high fevers and searing pain all up and down your body. And so I got that in part because I wasn't smart enough to use mosquito repellent. So when they tell you to use mosquito repellent, do it. It really is important. But I ended up getting really sick that first week. And so I arrived in Honduras on a Wednesday, and I started feeling sick Sunday morning. And so I ended up going into the hospital Sunday night and was there Sunday night, Monday, and got out Tuesday morning. As they treated me for dengue, basically, was the main illness. And in terms of the food, I liked Honduran food. I wouldn't say there was anything ever that weird or strange about it. A lot of rice, a lot of beans, a lot of eggs, a lot of tortillas. But one of the things I loved about Honduran food, and I wish happened here, was that it was sold everywhere. I mentioned that there are pulperias, which are basically these little convenience stores that are where they sell food out of people sell food out of their houses that they've run basically as convenience stores. But there was also always vendors on the street corners, always selling something, either drinks or hot dogs or baleadas, which a baleada is, it's basically a flour tortilla with refried beans and maybe cheese, and sometimes they had other things in there like sausage and stuff like that, or sometimes it was just beans and tortilla and cheese. So sometimes it was really simple, but it was kind of cool that they always just sold food on the street corner. So anytime you were hungry, you could just buy something right there. And the people there, they'll give you the shirt right off their backs if you ask them, and they're always more than willing to share whatever they have to eat with you. And that was kind of a humbling thing, because they didn't have a lot, but whatever they had, they wanted you to have some too. And so that was kind of cool. And they have this soup that they really like, and the soup is called mondongo soup. And that one is a little weird, because the meat that they have in there is cow intestine. And so that was, when I first heard, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I really want that so much. But I did have some. And what I remember is that the meat, which like I said is cow intestine, was extremely chewy, and so I didn't really love that so much. But I had it, ate it, didn't kill me. Honduras is a third world country, and as is often common, and unfortunately in a lot of third world countries, people see someone from the United States and they think money, and not even just people wanting to rob foreigners or travelers, but each other. People Hondurans robbing Hondurans, and that is sad. It's really unfortunate. I saw something the other day that kind of made me chuckle a little bit in a cynical way, I guess. But there was this thing that I saw on Facebook about the 10 most dangerous cities in the world. And the number one most dangerous city in the world was San Pedro Sula, which is in Honduras. The city of San Pedro Sula is a place that is a fairly dangerous place, but that was a lot of the bad stuff usually happens there. Some of the organized crime happens there. But definitely in Honduras, you don't want to draw attention to yourself unnecessarily in any way, especially draw attention as if you might have a lot of money. Most of the bad stuff that happens is happening later at night, and early in the morning. I wouldn't carry my debit card around if I didn't need it. Most of the time, you're not going to buy stuff with your debit card mostly. Most, like I talked about earlier, they have those little stores that are within walking distance, those little convenience store type things. You're always paying cash. No one's going to take a card anyways. The only time you're ever going to take a card is if you're going to a legitimate, big established restaurant or big established grocery store or something like that. But almost all your purchases are going to be in cash. So take some cash with you. Don't take a lot, but take some, and leave your card at home. You don't need it. I wouldn't take my camera somewhere unless I knew I was going to be taking some pictures. And if I had my camera, I wouldn't be just dangling it on my wrist all day and then walking by people. Take it out. You can use your camera, you can take pictures and all those types of things, but you should just be smart about it. And if you don't need something, don't carry it with you. It was the middle of the day and we were walking back from lunch, and this guy, who I'm pretty sure, he was I'm pretty sure he was stoned, or at least he was high on something, and he came up to us, and he knew that we had a little cell phone, and he came up to us and staggered toward us more like, and he had a little butter knife, and then he said, hey, give me your phone, or something like that. And at first I was kind of surprised, what's going on? But my companion was a pretty quick thinker, and he kind of swung his backpack around and just kind of shoved the guy over, just knocked him down, and we just walked away, briskly walked away and went on our way. And it was so silly. It was this same man who we usually saw him most days, and most days he was really high or drunk or something, and so it was just kind of funny. It was like, we see you every day and we say hi to you and talk to you, and now you're trying to rob us with a butter knife. And we kind of shoved, like I said, my companion kind of pushed him down and we walked away, and and then I think we saw him 2 weeks later and he was, hi elders, how you doing? So he was he was a little messed up, unfortunately, in the head, I think. But it wasn't so in general, that was the most dangerous incident I was ever in, and really even then it wasn't. I never ever felt really in danger. In terms of Honduran Spanish, it's Spanish. I think that, is there a little bit of a different accent maybe between Honduras and Nicaragua? Yeah, maybe a little bit. But it's Spanish. There really aren't a ton of differences. What is kind of funny in Honduras is they tend to, there's a phrase they use. They tend to eat their s's, or in other words, that they don't pronounce their s's a lot, which is kind of funny. And so, for example, when you have the city San Pedro Sula, and so as someone who reads that, it's very obvious there's s's in there. But oftentimes I would hear people say San Pedro Sula. And so they just kind of they say they eat their s's. They don't really pronounce them. So that can be kind of a headache, where you're like, wait, what did you just say? And they just kind of slur over them and don't pronounce them at all. So that was kind of funny. And there are definitely slang terms, and those terms differ from country to country. In fact, I got a souvenir T-shirt when I left that said, I speak Catracho, which Catracho is a slang term for Honduran, kind of like Yankee for an American or something like that. And it had some of the Honduran caliche or slang terms on there that were kind of funny. Some of them were not super appropriate always, but there are others that that they're just Honduran slang words. Like so one would be like a jalón, which is just to people would say, oh, I'm going to take a jalón, which is to hitchhike. Another word they would say a lot is cheque, which is just like good, or they had another word that was macizo, and macizo actually just means like solid or hard, but they would say it the way we would say cool. You're like, oh, que macizo, like how cool is that, So there are a few Honduran slang words and things like that, but it's Spanish, and so the few. That it's not like anyone from Nicaragua who came to Honduras ever had a hard time communicating with people. It's the same language. Maybe the differences might be about the same as if we went to England. Would there be a few words that were a little different if we went to England, and would they sound maybe a little different? Yeah. There's some differences, but by and large it's the same thing. In the capital, there is this giant statue. They call it Pikachu, and it's a statue of Christ. And it looks a lot like the one down in Brazil. That I think it's in Rio de Janeiro, the giant statue of Christ holding his hands out and things like that. And it's not nearly as big. The one in Honduras is not nearly as big as the one that's in Brazil, but it is pretty big, and it kind of overlooks the city. They've got some very beautiful beaches. They've got some old ruins that are kind of exciting for people to go see. It's very green. Lots of trees. It can be a little muggy at times. It'll be humid. The people there love soccer. Soccer is the thing. And I remember while I was there, Honduras had only qualified for the World Cup one other time in their history of trying, in the history of the World Cup. But they qualified for the second time while I was there on a mission. And what was funny is the reason they qualified was because the American team tied whoever they were playing that night. And so because they tied that other team, and Honduras won their game, it gave Honduras enough points to qualify for the World Cup. So everybody was just so excited. There was cars honking everywhere. There was just parties going out in the streets, people lighting off fireworks. People were just ecstatic. And I ended up taking a video. We were at the top of our apartment building, and just people were in the streets, just the happiest I've ever seen them in my life. It was like a national holiday. And then the next day, anytime anyone saw me, they're like, "Oh, hey, thanks for sending us to the World Cup. We love Gringos, and thank goodness for the Gringos. That goal saved our season." And just people were so happy. I had people offering to buy me drinks and stuff like that the next day, just because they were so pleased that we had helped them get to the World Cup. Pretty much in every neighborhood, within usually 4 minutes of walking maximum, someone basically owns a little store out of their house, and they call it a pulperia. And what you do is you go up, and usually they have just a little latch that opens, and so you can kind of like see inside their house, and you can kind of knock on their little gate or their chain, or just call to them, and someone basically within their house comes out and says, yeah, what do you need, and you can buy kind of the essentials type thing. You can buy milk, you can buy water, you can buy little little bread rolls that they sell a lot and eat a lot called semitas. You can buy, beans or rice or just a bag of chips or things like that. But, a lot of what we would think of kind of like the same stuff you would find in a gas station, in a convenience store. You can buy all that, in a little store. I'd run out of someone's house that's, always within walking distance. So the biggest thing that I love about the Honduran people is that, they want to love you. It doesn't matter who you are. They have such an inherent trust in people, and immediately from the first time you talk to them, they think they already count you as a friend immediately. And I wish we did that a little bit more. I mean, so much we get so involved in our phones or in technology or in our own little cliques and our own friends and circles that we don't really want to associate or say anything to people outside of our comfort zone. But in Honduras, they're always willing to do that. Everyone is their friend. In fact, I remember after I came home from my mission, I ended up going to the store with my sister, and I was going to the store, and I'd been used to being in Honduras, and so I was saying hi to people, and talking to people, and one of the store people, had their name tag, so I was calling them by their name and things like that. And I remember, I went home, and Elizabeth, my sister, went to my parents and said, "Brian's weird." And my parents said, "Why?" And Elizabeth said, "Because he's like just talking to everybody. It's weird. It's strange. Like, people that he's just saying hi to random people at the store." And I laughed, and she kind of teased me about it. But it was because that's the way it is in Honduras, that people want to say hello to you. They're willing to take the shirt right off their backs and give it to you if need be, because they care about you the moment they meet you. And that's one of the things that I most admire about the Honduras people.